All right, and welcome, my friends, to the next episode here of the Red Delta Project podcast and live Q&A, where we take a fundamental approach to fitness to help you be fit and live free. I'm Matt Shipley, founder of the Red Delta Project, and today's episode is sponsored by my library that I've written for you, but particularly this book here. This is Micro Workouts. We're discussing one of the most common and prevalent micro workout strategies that can save you a lot of time and a lot of wasted energy when it comes to your training. One strategy that is not used quite as much on complexes that I'm really excited to share with you is, and that is, of course, circuit training. Circuit training and complexes, they're kind of one and the same. They're siblings, if you will, between the two of them. But we are looking at those not only for saving time, but for helping you build muscle and strength. Oh, is my audio bad? I'm working. Can you hear me at all, or is it just not working? Let's see here. Pocket wireless. Yeah, that's good. There's an echo. Audio seems off. That's interesting. I'm not sure why. All right, let me try something here, folks. All right, I got my camera back. But how does that sound audio-wise, folks? Is that any better? Let's see. Yeah, I'm all punching buttons these days here, folks. Not my usual mic, though. That should be coming out free and clear. Okay, Alan says, good. Is everybody hearing me okay? Sounds okay. Dealing with some new setups and stuff. New approaches. Okay, that's my MacBook microphone. Now it's not even showing my regular mic. It's all on. Okay, well, maybe I'll have to just go with the MacBook mic for today and figure that out at another time. Tell you, the more I try to make things simple, the more things, let me try. How does that sound, folks? Oh, multiple mics on. Okay, now I'm shutting off microphones left and right. All right, someone tell me if that sounds okay, because I can't hear it. I can't hear the feedback myself. But now I'm going off of the microphone on my camera, which should be better. Okay, now. All right, very good. All right, I'm going to probably keep glasses on for a moment here. I am all kinds of blurry today. Okay, all right. as I was discussing, we are looking at a micro workout strategy, circuit training, and complex training as a way to get rid of a lot of the dead space in our workouts. And this has long been used. Lots of people have been doing this for years for the sake of saving you time and energy and things to make things happen really quick. And as you know me, I'm all about making workouts much more efficient, because shorter, more efficient workouts, they're easier to stick to. They're easier to stay consistent with, which is key, because anything you can't stay consistent with, you can't really, manage, because especially when it comes to building muscle, we need strategies that are as easy to maintain as possible. So we've got that. Then, of course, when it comes to circuits, we also have some secondary benefits that people will cite, where it's like, well, it's kind of getting the heart rate up. So you're kind of getting your cardio on a little bit. So that's good. Plus, you can have multiple different exercises that you're mixing in a short period of time. I was just building out a series of circuits and complexes for a client of mine this past week. And we literally nearly tripled the number of exercises in his workout, even though the workout was actually going to be shorter. And that's kind of a benefit of creating more of what I call a broad stimulus. If we're doing one exercise and we're spending, say, 40 minutes doing that one thing, then you're basically kind of beating a dead horse to death, as it were. You are getting a lot out of that one thing, but you're not subjecting your body to a lot. It's kind of like trying to have a lunch of just bologna. I mean, imagine if you sat down to a big loaf of bologna and you're just eating that for lunch, versus you had something where it was more of a sandwich, and you've got bread and you've got condiments and you've got lettuce and you've got herbs and you've got all these other things, right? Variety, as they say, is the spice of life. But when we have more variety in our diet and with our workouts, we're bringing more value to the table, because you don't need to have a whole lot of quantity of any one thing to get a great result. Sometimes it's kind of just a variety of things that kind of fundamentally still add up collectively. And that's what our strategies today are all about, is having the ability to manage the way we program our circuits. Because yes, it can save time. Yes, it can give you a lot of broad stimulus. But the disadvantage of it, though, is that if you don't know how to program it, you can actually go kind of against the ability to have a stimulus for building muscle. And this is very, very common. This is where a lot of times people will make fun of like HIIT training or CrossFitters and stuff. A lot of this circuit stuff. It's like, yeah, it's good for getting your heart rate up, good for the mental toughness and the Metcons and everything like that. But is it really one of our best options for building muscle? And of course, you can build muscle with almost anything. For sure, all you got to do is have progressively working your muscles over time. You can pretty much do any kind of workout that you like, but we're about doing things as quickly as possible here at RDP, which means doing them directly. We want to not kind of beat around the bush and kind of dilute the workouts and the stimulus with 100 other things, which means that building muscle is going to be a much slower process. We want to build our circuits and our complexes straight in, trying to build muscle as effectively as possible. So let's get into that. We'll get to some of the questions here. Michael, Drop Weight Daddy, it's good to see you, saying, when is the next book going to be released? Hopefully sooner than later. My schedule these days, I have to tell you, my friends, I am so busy. It's ridiculous. Very busy with the bodyweight training gym, very busy at the regular gym, very busy with, of course, the podcast here. I've got a lot of irons in the fire, and the book is just inching along. But luckily this weekend, I've got some much more free time. Even tonight, it's going to be Saturday night. I know a lot of people like to go out. In all honesty, I've been doing a little bit too much of the partying these days, going out with friends, staying out too late, drinking a little too much and stuff. And it's just been eating away into that. So I'm kind of looking forward to a quiet night in tonight with just my two cats, a nice IPA, and I'm just going to crank like crazy on the book to hopefully get it out as quickly as possible, because it really is as much of a life changer as a game changer as I'm trying to manage when it comes to health and fitness. So I'm very excited about it myself, but I will keep you guys all abreast. And as you know, I give away all of my information for free here through the podcast and on my YouTube channel. The books that I write, these are all just collective ways to bring the best information into easy to consume sources. I never hold anything back. So make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. Make sure that you're subscribed here, of course, to the podcast if you're listening to it. If you check out one of the latest episodes or videos that I posted earlier this week about an update on a fundamental approach to fitness, because that's what the book is about, that was the basic overview of what the book is going to be entailing. So if you watch that video, you're going to get like 70% of what the book is going to entail with just that one video. So make sure you go to the YouTube channel and look that up. It's like 2 or 3 videos deep at this point, but it will be an effective way for you to get an idea of what the book is about and to get started with things like that. Excuse me. Mauro Solis is saying, is high volume calisthenics regime required for building muscle, even if it is split into micro workouts? So volume is one of these things that is a polarizing topic in fitness in general. Some people are like low volume. No, you got to have high volume. No, you've got to, mix and match kind of thing. But the fact of the matter is, yes, volume is an influence towards building muscle, as we're going to discuss momentarily here. You do want to have enough volume, but just chasing after volume is often going to just kind of waste a lot of your time and energy. It's kind of like with calories and protein and a lot of other factors when it comes to our workouts. Yes, it is a factor. Yes, you do want to have enough of it. If you're not getting enough of it, getting more will certainly help you. But if you are getting enough, more is not going to help you. In fact, it could be detrimental because now you're spending time and energy and efforts and sometimes money on basically adding more of this variable or resource into your mix, and it's not helping you, but those resources could be going towards things that may be helping you. So high volume. Well, what is high volume? Right? I once saw someone who said if you could do 20 repetitions of something, that's high volume. And other people are like, well, 100 push-ups is not even considered high volume by their definition. So don't worry about, low volume versus high volume and how much volume you need and all that. It's just a fool's rabbit hole that you're going to fall into. You're not going to get the answer you really need by doing it that way. Instead, what you want to do is focus on enough volume, so, an adequate amount of volume, because a fundamental approach teaches us that your success in anything in fitness and maybe even life in general, for building muscle, building strength, getting a good front lever, whatever you're going after, your success on that does not depend on how much work you do. Okay, but most of the advice in our fitness culture will focus on you have to do this much work. You have to do these many sets. You have to do this much volume. You have to eat this much protein. You have to have these many calories, and on and on and on and on. Those things are not the determining variables for your success. And any variable that you go after where you are basically trying to satisfy a particular numerical metric is a guessing game at best, and it's probably going to be wrong most of the time. But when you have a fundamental approach to fitness, you're not going off of those variables. You're going off of an objective-based approach. You have an objective with your training, an objective with your diet, and then what you do is you do however much work or volume or weight or calories or protein or whatever you're looking at, however much you need to best accomplish that objective. Because your success does not depend on how much protein you eat, how much volume you do, how many sets and reps you do. Those things are important, but not in the ways we think, because those are influences to how well you can achieve those objectives. But if you don't know what the objective is and you're not paying attention to what you're doing, how well you're achieving it, any number and metric that you're using is a wild guess and an estimation and correlation at best. So just to answer your question, is high volume necessary? Not at all. There's plenty of people who build lots of muscle with low volume stuff, because the other antithesis variable to that, of course, is intensity. So it's not about volume. It's not about intensity. It's about the mix of the two and your ability to achieve that objective, which we'll get into in short order here. So basically, what we're looking at, San Diego is coming in, I'll just answer this. Do you know about Madbar's routines? They use this circuit training format, several exercises per routine, 7 per session. Very good. Now, bodyweight training in particular lends itself very well to circuit training and complex training. largely because of the low equipment demand that is there. Like right here, I got my stall bars, I got my pull-up bar, I got a suspension strap system. I'm good to go, right? I just bring some of these NOSC trainers over to the park and I can do 100 different things right there. So when we're looking at circuits, what a circuit is, as opposed to a complex, is a circuit is where we'll have relatively different stations. Like you go over here and you do squats, then you lunge over here, and then you've got your pull-ups over there. You come over here and you got push-ups over here. So you've got a physical like circuit much of the time where your body is physically moving from station to station. Works really good for group classes. That's why you see this employed a lot in things like a group training sessions and stuff. Used to do that all the time when I worked at the gyms. But a complex, by comparison, is where you are staying in place and oftentimes mostly utilizing one piece of equipment, and you're changing from one exercise to the next without any break. Now, the complexes are often utilized with free weights, barbells, kettlebells, sandbag, dumbbells, sort of thing, where it's like, okay, you do like 10 front squats. Then from there, you have 5 overhead presses. Then you bend down and you've got like 8 deadlifts and so on. Now, one of the things to recognize about complex training, though, is because you're using a piece of equipment and you're not taking the time to go from station to station or changing things up, that usually the resistance that you're using with that complex is determined by the weakest exercise, if you were. So you may have a barbell complex where you have back squats, good mornings, overhead presses, deadlifts, and bicep curls. But the thing is, your bicep curl is, quote, the weakest exercise. So you can only use a weight you can curl, and then your deadlifts and stuff may be a little underloaded. Now, the benefit, though, with bodyweight training, particularly suspension calisthenics, using our NOSC suspension straps and everything, the benefit there is our resistance is determined by our body position, our angles to gravity and stuff. So we can not only change what the exercise is by changing our body position, but the resistance itself. So you can always use a very high degree of resistance, which makes bodyweight complexes, particularly suspension complexes, a unique animal in the world of efficient micro workout training. And it can be extremely effective, particularly for helping you to build muscle. So that's the 2 definitions I'm talking about here for the remainder of the episode. We have circuits, we're physically moving through various stations or different areas where we're doing different exercises. And that gives you the advantage of changing up equipment, changing up resistance, particularly if you're using equipment-based types of resistance like free weights and machines and things. And then we have complexes where you have one piece of equipment and you're not changing anything about the equipment that you're using. You just diddy-bop from one exercise to the next. And that's a form of circuit training, you could probably argue, but it's extremely time efficient and extremely effective if we know how to program it. Adam's coming in saying, sometimes I feel like calisthenics won't trash the nervous system like weights, thus allowing you to do it more frequently. Potentially, yeah. Although you can certainly still trash the nervous system very hard with calisthenics training. Although that's also the case with isometrics too. It doesn't hit the nervous system nearly as hard. And you're probably right to a large degree. When I got into bodyweight training, I was pleasantly surprised with how much I wasn't feeling beat up afterwards from particularly the heavier weights. Because at that time I was doing a lot of powerlifting-esque style stuff, a lot of barbell work, deadlifts, squats, bench press, overhead press, things that are physically loading me up with a lot of weight. And when I went to bodyweight training, particularly progressive calisthenics initially from Convict Conditioning, I was like, oh man, my muscles got fried, but my body as a whole doesn't feel like it got beat up. Like I feel like I can still go for a hike or play some Frisbee with friends at the park. I don't feel like I need to have 48 hours of bed rest. So that's a good observation that you have, and probably one of the many muscle building advantages of bodyweight training. Because always remember, my friends, that the old adage is that you work out and then you have to recover. But the fact is you don't need to recover from exercise. You need to recover from stress and fatigue. And for stimulating hypertrophy, right now, as we currently understand it, because there's a lot we don't understand about why we build muscle, but as we currently understand it, one of the primary drivers for stimulating hypertrophy is to basically beat the snot out of the muscle tissue itself, to cook the muscles, to make it really, really, really bring the muscle itself to a high fatigue.
But always remember that when you are doing an exercise, there's lots of different systems at play. There's more than just your muscles. There's more than just your nervous system. There's your cardio system. There's, endocrine system. There's a lot of other things that are also getting stressed. So the more stress you have on those other systems that you have to recover from, the more that is potentially creating some sort of an interference effect with how hard you can push your actual muscle tissue itself. So when we are utilizing methods that can really stress the muscle tissue while leaving less stress on your cardio system and your nervous system and other things, that can only be beneficial in helping you build muscle. Because if we can stress the area we want to address and leave everything else relatively intact so it doesn't need nearly as much recovery, that's a good thing. That's only going to help you. Dan Osek, it's good to see you as always. Hey, Matt, the concept of complexes seems like a perfect fit for isometrics with the IsoMax. Every exercise can be done within about 4 square feet. Love it. Absolutely. Complexes are wonderful for isometric training. The IsoMax works very well because you can adjust the height very quickly, of course, with the strap. If you're using like an ISO trainer, right, from the World Fit, that's really quick and easy to switch around as well. Complexes work extremely well for it. Very good observation, Dan. And yeah, these are basic strategies. They're by no means at all a method that is exclusive to calisthenics training. Remember, when it comes to building muscle and strength with bodyweight training, fundamentally, we're doing the same thing as we would with weights or isometrics or bands or whatever else you want to be using. Right? There's no real difference fundamentally for building muscle with calisthenics as there is with anything else. It's just you're using a slightly different vehicle, so you need to know how it operates. So you can take many of the principles in today's episode and apply it if you want to kettlebells or dumbbells or sandbags or isometrics and stuff. It's by no means something that is exclusive to bodyweight training. Stephen Kelly, it's good to see you again, my friend, saying, how do you feel about building muscle with variable resistance exclusively? Can you expand on that a little bit, my friend? Because resistance should be variable. You should be changing your resistance. And I think I know kind of what you're talking about, but it's a little fuzzy in my mind. Please explain further on what you mean by variable resistance. Because yeah, if we only have one level of resistance for everything that we're using, then it's going to be inadequate for many exercises, or maybe even potentially overloading for many things. That's why it is essential for you to understand, if you want to use bodyweight training for building muscle, you have to know about progressive calisthenics theory, or at least how you can adjust the resistance of bodyweight training. If you're always doing the same technique, push-ups like this the whole time, that's like going into the gym and curling 20-pound dumbbells and never lifting a different weight. Yeah, it can work for a while. It can be somewhat productive, but you're only going to hold yourself back if you're always using the same push-up technique. If you're always doing push-ups the same way and pull-ups and squats and lunges and stuff, people get caught in the calisthenics rut, as I like to call it, where we have one standard mental way of thinking about how we do an exercise, and that's what we do most of the time. And that is a massive mistake that is only going to hold you back in the long run, because you need your resistance to change and have variability in order to have the ability to adequately stimulate and work the muscles. Just real quick, shameless plug, Adam Mundo saying, love the Paul Wade shirt. Thank you very much. This is at the Red Delta Project merch store, folks. I don't have a link down below. I just have the link for the Micro Workouts book. But if you go to reddeltaproject.com, you'll be able to find them there. This is a design of my own, by the way. And when I came out with this, I had a couple friends who basically were like, you sure you're okay with making that shirt? Like, you should ask Dragon Door. And I was like, no, I'm not going to ask Dragon Door if this is okay. I'm not going to get permission from them. And they're like, why the hell not? I'm like, because I went straight to the source and asked Paul Wade himself. I do have his email address. And I was like, Coach, here's a design I was thinking about on a shirt, but I need your blessing in order to go forward. And he's like, you're about the only guy I would give that blessing to, but go for it. So I wear this shirt with pride to know that I've got his endorsement there. Joseph Bello saying, hello, Matt. Doing a superset of push-ups, then rows and bicep exercise or tricep exercise, the same as a complex. It can be. And again, like there's the difference between a circuit and a complex. You know, sometimes the line can be very blurry between the two. So if you're like, is this a circuit or is this a complex? I'm like, sure, fine, whatever, whatever label you want to put onto it. It doesn't really matter kind of thing. But let's explore the way I would call that a complex is push-ups, then rows. So push-ups, let's say we've got some suspension straps. So we got our push-ups on the straps, and then we lean back and we got our rows on the straps. Then we got our bicep curls, and then we come forward and we do our triceps. There you go. That would be a complex. I would certainly call that a complex. That would be an antagonistic complex, my friend, where you're working different muscles back to back, supersets. So this is one thing that we want to pay attention to in both circuits and complexes is, are we doing antagonistic work, or are we doing what I like to call compounding? So let me give you an example. Let's say we set up a circuit or a complex, and you're like, okay, so we've got a push movement, we've got a pull movement, and then we've got a squat movement. So for the push movement, chest, shoulders, triceps, push chain. Pull movement, back, biceps, upper back sort of thing. And then you've got your squat movement, which is, of course, lower body. So as one muscle group is working, the others are kind of taking a little bit of a rest and recovering. Right? So the advantages are several on this. One, you can really put a lot of effort and resistance into each one of these because it's the one thing you're doing for the push, pull, and squat chain. Two is you can kind of diddy bop through this circuit pretty good with minimal rest because as one area is resting, the other can work and so forth. But at the same time, you can have a little bit of a cardiovascular effect to it because you're still creating a metabolic demand on the body, even though certain muscles are kind of taking a little bit of a break. So there's that advantage. And two is you can cover like more of the body, right? You push, pull, squat exercise, a few times around, boom, you got the whole body done, finished, 10 minutes, go about your day. So those are the advantages to doing it that way. Now, for me, if I was coming to you and I was like, but I really want to stimulate hypertrophy, I really want to cook the muscle, and I want to create a good stimulus for hypertrophy, how would I do it? Well, I would take 2 or 3 exercises, maybe 4, and I would basically work the same tension chain with all 4. So it's a compounding of fatigue. That's why I call it compounding. So I've got a couple of videos, actually, I just posted on Red Delta Project's YouTube channel, and I've got one coming out later on the squat chain, where it's basically just blasting the mother living hell out of the push and the pull chain. These are 2 different complexes. I love these. These are fantastic exercises or little mini workouts. So for the push chain, what I did was I've got a set of suspension straps, and I even do a little bit of a pre-exhaust with this to really make the muscles scream bloody murder. So I start off with some chest flies on the suspension straps to get the chest work pretty good for like 10 reps. Then I walk forward and I get the tricep extensions for about 8 to 10. And then now that my chest and triceps are really nice and pretty warm, then I go down and I start doing push-ups on the straps as well. And of course, I'm barely able to do any. Like you get down there, and I'm like, I can maybe get 5 or 6, and that I'm just pushing to the point where I can't do it anymore. And so that circuit done 2 or 3 times, that's going to cook the muscle real fast. Is it the best way to focus on building strength? Absolutely not, because each one is creating more fatigue in the muscle, and the more fatigue we have, the less tension we can hold. So it's not the best way to build that absolute strength. Is it very efficient as far as working the whole body? No, because we just did 3 exercises and we only had the push chain. Is it the most metabolically demanding? Not really, because we're not really working the whole body. Remember, if we work more muscle, then we create more of a metabolic demand. So we're not quite getting the same cardio benefit. But when the objective of creating hypertrophy, the objective for those workouts is basically smoke the hell out of the muscles, that's going to make it a heck of a lot easier to smoke out the muscles, to bring them to a high state of fatigue very quickly. Couple of rounds of that, man, you're going to be pretty smoked in that push chain there. So that's the way we want to kind of program if we're looking at circuit training and complexes for the sake of creating a stimulus for hypertrophy, is having compounding effects there. Maybe something where we're focusing a little bit on individual muscles like the chest or triceps or something like that. And I like to do it that way just because it hurts more, just because it's harder. You could do it the other way, push-ups. But the thing is, if I started doing just push-ups on straps, like that's pretty easy for me to do. Like I could probably get 20, 30 reps without thinking about it too hard. But then if I smoke myself out on the compound movement, then I go into the chest flies and I'm just like, oh, I got nothing for the chest flies, nothing for the tricep. So I like to do the single joint first, then the compound stuff, and it has this nice layering effect. And it's also kind of a little easier on the joints as well that way. So it's one of those things that we want to just order and program a little bit, but of course take these and just go with what feels best for you. If you say, well, I like to put the compound movements maybe in the middle of the whole thing, it's like, yeah, sure, great. Everything is open source. It can be one of those things that you can manage to whatever your body is telling you to be the most effective. Excuse me. Little dribble glass there. Spicy J coming in. How's it going there? As always, saying, due to my circumstances, when and where I train can be at different times and places. Yeah, equipment at times, because it's just not the same. I have doubts on improving and staying in a rut. Tips to overcome. Yeah, I'm in the same boat, my friend. I work at 2 different gyms, and sometimes I'm home much of the day. Sometimes I'm not home hardly at all. I worked a 13-hour day yesterday. I wasn't home at all. And I was just diddy-bopping between the gyms. And much of my ability to work out is just whenever I can get whatever I can get in. So my equipment resources, my environment, my time, my energy, everything is always in flux. That's why I created my adaptive training approach, or intuitive training, I know as a lot of people call it, my adaptive training approach to just work with whatever circumstances I've got. But don't worry too much about being in a rut with these sorts of things, because ultimately, especially if it's with calisthenics, you're looking at still basic fundamental exercises, pull-ups, progressive push-ups, lunges, squats. So there's not going to be a whole lot of difference there from one area to the next. I could be doing my pull-ups here and pull-ups at the bodyweight gym. And yeah, it's a different pull-up bar. The diameter is a little different. The room and the space underneath it's a little bit different, but fundamentally, I'm not doing anything really that different. So I can still make progress just fine. So you've got that. The more you stay with somewhat of a consistency of what kind of exercises you're doing, the less the variations in your environment is going to really actually matter. And just keep an eye on the way that you can just progress in the technique as well. Weight and reps is great, but remember, you don't get stronger because you add weight and reps. You add weight and reps because you got stronger. So the strength happens first. Now, by all means, you can certainly stimulate that by saying, okay, I'm going to put an extra 20 pounds on the dip belt for sure. But I would say keep focusing on the proficiency of how well you're doing the techniques and the exercises, because that's something you can always be aware of regardless of your circumstances. And when you are really making a lot of progress in the ability to do a pull-up, it's like, oh, I could never get my chest to the bar, and now I can. Or I never really felt my lats working very much on these rows, and now my lats are really lit up. You could be doing your rows in different areas, different equipment and stuff, but you're using your body better. And that fundamentally is the heart of how you make progress. And that can happen with any circumstances. So focus on improving your proficiency above all else is basically what I'm trying to say there, Spicy J. Thank you very much for the props, Michael. Highly recommend Matt's books. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me, my friend. Michael Coulomb saying, once you mentioned in your basement, you rigged up suspension trainers at 3 different heights. If a person can't do that, doesn't that facilitate this type of training, like your bowline trainer say? Yeah, exactly. So that's the great thing about suspension straps is they're cheap. You don't need a whole lot of them. Of course, things like the NOSC systems, these are super easy to adjust. So it may not be all that practical to have 3 different ones set up at 3 different heights. One for low to the ground, one for middle for like dips and rows, and then one for overhead for like pull-ups and things. So they're so easy to adjust. It doesn't make much sense. But with DIY and stuff, and I've got a lot of DIY suspension straps here on the channel. I even have a channel of DIY equipment reviews. And so if you make your own, like you just get a bunch of rope and you do some of my rope trainers, like the bowline trainer you mentioned, then yeah, go for it. Rock on, or even don't even make, adjustable ones. You just set up a couple of ropes, like these are the ones for the low, these are the ones for the middle, these are the ones for high. That's how I would do it if I was setting up a whole nother gym in my basement all over again, is I would just have those. And that would be a lot of fun and efficient. And yeah, that gives you different stations for the circuit training for sure. Good ideas, good thoughts there, Michael. Mariano saying, hey, Matt, I know it's a topic already talked about, but to have an aesthetic core, what are your recommendations? Oh, simple. Very good. Thanks for bringing that up. A couple of things. Of course, aesthetics for the body is basically the same throughout the entire body. It's not any different for the core as it is for the biceps or the legs or anything like that. It's more muscle, less fat. That's basically how we build the aesthetics of everything. And no, a lot of times in our fitness culture, you've got people saying, oh, you know, I want to shred or tone or bulk or sculpt or length, blah, 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 blah. It's all marketing mumbo jumbo BS, right? Bigger muscles, less fat. Everybody's playing the same game. Okay? It doesn't matter if it's your core or your biceps or your quads. It doesn't matter if you're a bodybuilder or figure competitor or you want to tone up water. Everything is fundamentally the same. You want more muscle and you need less fat. Now the problem, or not the problem, but the challenge with the core and the midsection is this is an area we tend to store more fat with, and there just isn't a whole lot of muscle there. You know, we got the rectus abdominis, we got the transverse abdominis, you know, your inner and outer external obliques and everything. But the bottom line is these muscles just don't grow very much. They certainly can, absolutely, like any other muscle. But when it comes to building that aesthetic core, you want to drop the body fat levels down, okay, burning more calories than you're consuming naturally. And to some degree, it is a genetic thing. Some people are just going to have more fat in the belly area than other people. And there are some people who just genetically, they're going to have an easier time having a six-pack abs. They can have all the junk food they want, and they hardly do any work or exercise, and they have abs year-round. And other people, they're going to have to basically have a super clean diet and really, really push themselves in the exercise department. And they might kind of sort of possibly have a 4-pack in the right lighting conditions kind of thing. I know it's not fair, but fitness isn't fair. Some people are just going to have an easier time achieving some goals than others. So appreciate the goals you have an easier time achieving. Of course, we usually want what we can't have. So we're often chasing after the things that are just inherently more difficult for us. Yeah, we get the body fat levels low, build the muscle up, and don't make the mistake when it comes to core training of changing up the programming so much. That's the biggest mistake people make, especially with calisthenics, is they think, okay, I'm doing a different type of training or I'm working for a different muscle group or something. I should train it differently. No, you want to work the muscle hard. You want to work it with intensity. You want to burn out the muscle. You want to cook it essentially. And I usually recommend hanging leg raises and stretch outs, either with an ab wheel or suspension straps as good ways of going about doing that. So let me give you an example too of applying exactly that with complexes. Okay, so here's a complex I gave a friend of mine the other day. Loved it. So let's take some suspension straps or gymnastics rings, put them down pretty low, so about a foot off the ground or so. So we're going to get 6 stretch outs, basically like an ab wheel, but it's more adjustable. So you get 6 of those. Then you go right into a seated knee tuck. So you're seated, your knees are tucked, or an L sit if you've got the strength for that, for 10 seconds. Then you put your legs straight back behind you and you have slow mountain climbers, not the fast ones you do for aerobics and stuff, just slow mountain climbers, tucking your knee up real nice and tight, and then hold a plank for an additional 15 seconds. So those 4 things, it's not going to take much more than a minute, minute and a half to go through all that. But in that minute, that 90 seconds or so, you're going to obliterate your core far more than most people do in even longer core, training sessions or even core classes, just because you're hitting it one after the other, after the other, after the other. You're training your abs in different angles. You're subjecting your body to different types of stimuli. You're getting much more of a holistic approach to it, but fundamentally you're still working that flexion chain and working your abs to a very high degree of tension and endurance. So that would be an example of an abdominal training complex. Let's do something on the floor. Let's say you don't have rings or suspension straps. Okay, you're on the floor. So we're going to go with a dead bug to start you off, holding for 15 seconds. We've got our hands pressing in our knees. We're curled up. Okay, then you have hands down by the side, and you have 15 leg raises, either knees bent or legs raised. Okay, 15 leg raises. Then you've got a hollow body hold. So arms are up overhead, and you're basically creating a boat with your body like that. And then just for the fun of it, we'll have scissor kicks, where you're pressing your lower back to the floor and your legs are alternating back and forth in a smooth, controlled motion. So see, complexes. It's not hard to put these things together, folks. Don't get too caught up in the details of, oh, should I do it this way or should I do it that way? If you get like 3 or 4 exercises together that all work roughly the same tension chain, roughly the same muscles, put them together and just go for it and see what happens. And they're a lot of fun to kind of get a lot of that work in a short period of time. James B saying, my intro to Garage Gym was purchasing 3 cheap pull-up bars and setting them at 3 different heights, pull-ups, dips, inverted rows. Very good, James. Yeah, everybody check Craigslist and stuff like that. You can find some pretty good finds. I know back in the day, my mentor, Zach Evanish, was always talking about classified ads in the newspaper because that's how old we are. But yeah, if you can get like 2 or 3 pull-up bars, think about that. If you're setting up a garage gym or a basement gym, we were talking about the suspension straps and trainers and stuff. Don't think of just one piece or one single item of a piece of equipment, especially if it's something relatively affordable. If you're like, dude, I can have like 3 different sets of gymnastics rings. I'm like, great, go for it. In my original gym, again, I had like a suspension set up, and I had 2 different sets of gymnastics rings just because I couldn't decide which pair I wanted to buy. So I bought both of them. They had some subtle design differences. And yeah, I just leave them set up. One was high, one was middle, one was low. It's fantastic setup. Really quick grab and go kind of thing. The less you have to fiddle with equipment and set it up, the better. Woodrock Pete. How's it going, my friend? Hey, Matt. When's your book coming out? Yes, again, sorry about the delay here, folks. I'm working on it as quickly as I can. You once mentioned that it isn't getting you anything when we order a paperback. Got your Kindles, but thinking about getting the paperbacks as well. Thank you very much for courtesy there, my friend. Yeah, for the most part, the paperbacks, I sell just ever so slightly above cost, folks. Just because, my God, Amazon is expensive to print it and everything like that. I think one of my books I think I make like $3 off of. That's the highest one. I think that's my Smart Bodyweight Training one. I think I priced that one to at least make a few bucks on it. But yeah, for the most part, the paperbacks make me, if enough for a cup of coffee at the end of the month kind of thing. The Kindle stuff or the PDF stuff, if you go through, again, the RDP merch store, that's where I make at least enough money to pay my rent these days. But I do enjoy the consideration. And yeah, if you want paperback, get paperback. The entire reason why I offer paperback is just because you people wanted it. My original books, I came up with like 3 books in a row, and it was all Kindle and it was all PDFs and stuff like that, because I figured nobody wants to buy one of these versions for 3 times the cost because of the printing and everything. And some people are like, but I like having a physical book. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll put the files on paperback as well. And, if you want that, great. But thank you very much for the considerations. I do certainly appreciate that. Joseph Bello. It's always good to talk to you, my friend. Hello, Matt. Which suspension shoulder exercise is good for working the whole shoulder along with pike push-ups? Oh, there's lots of them, of course, that you can utilize. Anything pressing like this, of course, is going to work pretty much the whole shoulder, or at least it should. I know a lot of people are like, what about the rear deltoid? You should be working your whole back whenever you're doing any pushing exercise. Your back should be very much engaged, especially vertical pressing stuff. But I'm a big fan of like what I call the Y-flies and stuff, where you're leaning back and you've got the straps like this, lean back, and you bring your arms straight up overhead or slightly out, like making a letter Y. That is more of a comprehensive deltoid exercise than people realize. It's getting your traps, it's getting your rear deltoids. You put a little rotation to it. You've got a little bit of rotator cuff, not that you wouldn't have it anyway, even without the rotation. That's a very simple thing. If you keep your back engaged and stable, it hits the shoulders better than I used to think. I'm rediscovering that exercise myself. It's something I haven't played around with a whole heck of a lot, but now that my back activation has gotten a lot better, especially over the past couple of months, I've been playing with it more, and wow, it's making a big, big difference in how my shoulders feel. So kind of coming around here, we're looking at complexes and the ability to utilize circuits and stuff. I talked a little bit about the programming. Now, again, with adaptive training, because a lot of people will say, well, how long do I rest between rounds? Or how long should I do these things? Again, don't go with a solid metric of like, you should do this 3 times, or you should rest 90 seconds between, because whatever number I give you, it's a guess. I'm just purely guessing as to what you need in order to achieve that fundamental stimulus, which is we're trying to work the muscles hard and make them bring the tissue to a high state of fatigue. So your circumstances are going to be different as to what that's going to require. If you have more time and more energy and more oomph, then you can probably get like 4, maybe even 5 rounds. Depends on how many exercises you do. If you've got 2 exercises in a complex or a circuit, you're going to be able to do more because you're not doing as much work. But if you've got like a 5 exercise circuit, you're not going to get as many rounds in and stuff. So that's why we always want to have that fundamental objective as like our target that we're going after. Like, I'm trying to make my muscles really fatigued. I'm trying to work them fairly hard with enough volume and enough intensity that I burn them out essentially. And when that is the objective, do whatever work you need to do in order to make that happen. When it comes to resting, rest just enough, catch your breath, let yourself kind of settle down a little bit, but don't rest so long that when you go back into another round or another circuit that you're like, oh, fresh as a daisy, I can just keep going. You're trying to burn things out here, folks. We're trying to burn out our muscles. So rest just enough to be able to put a good amount of energy and effort into the subsequent round. And we want to be reaching that state of high fatigue. And if you're successful in doing that, you should feel like you just get to this wall of fatigue. Like, first round, okay, yeah, good start. Second round, ooh, starting to feel it. Third round, all right, yeah, now that's really burning. And then you like jump up on the pull-up bar for the 4th round or whatever, and your muscles are like, nope, not gonna happen here. You could have a circuit where it's like, okay, I'm doing 6 pull-ups and you get like 2. That's kind of what you're looking for. That fast fatigue where the muscles are essentially just kind of spent and burned out. And if you're having trouble doing that, add more resistance. A lot of times we are not working nearly as hard as we think we are. So don't be shy with the resistance. Just because you're doing exercises that may work the same muscles or the same tension chain, don't like be too cautious and pace yourself too much. Don't get under that first exercise and be like, well, I've got 4 other leg exercises in the circuit, should pace myself a little. Smoke it. Get it done as quickly as you can on the first couple, because when you're doing especially like complexes for the single chain, like I was talking about earlier, where it's chest flies, triceps, and push-ups. By the time I get down for those push-ups, I've done my chest flies, I've done my triceps, I get down on my push-ups, and everything in my body is like, I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Oh God. You want to be feeling like you're kind of pushing your work capacity, either physically, mentally, or maybe even emotionally kind of thing. It's like, oh man, this is going to hurt like hell. Here we go kind of stuff. That's kind of a sign you're on the right track there. Woodrock is back again saying, hey, Matt, just wanted to ask, where do you get the most percentages? I once bought it as a PDF as well. Thank you very much. That's a good question. I'm so bad with numbers, folks. I honestly couldn't tell you as far as where I get the percentages, what books make me the most money, and where I do it and everything like that. Seriously, don't worry about it. I appreciate the support. Anybody who just wants to give me support, they've got on the YouTube channel there, they've got the support button where you can just simply make a quick donation, to the channel. But don't worry too much about it, folks. I'm not starving. I'm making enough to live well these days, especially compared to where I was a few years ago. Bologna and Hot Pockets every day, I tell you. But if it does make much difference from one or the other, it's going to be like 50 cents and stuff. It's pretty even across the board. But again, thank you very much for the consideration. But he follows up saying, hey, Matt, I've effed up so many years getting fat using pyramid, reverse pyramid, lifted way too much, discovering calisthenics, hard resistance bands, now using one of your DIY and with, I'm assuming that's a weight vest, but it's autocorrect got kind of crazy. Man, I tell you, this whole fitness thing, it's exploring, it is a journey into what works best for you. Everybody's figuring this stuff out for themselves. Guys like me, all we can do is offer ideas and suggestions, and that's based on what I've learned and my experience and everything. But at the end of the day, we're all just kind of experimenting. We're our own personal lab. And so when we try something and it doesn't quite work well for us, and we're like, that didn't do what I wanted to do. Well, that's part of the process. Everybody goes through that. Nobody is like, oh, I found this thing and it worked great and it's always been great. That doesn't happen. We all hit dead ends. We all hit plateaus. We all hit stumbling blocks where we're like, well, I did it this way for several years and then it didn't work so well. So then I had to try this other thing. And that's just the way it is. It's part of the fun of it. It's one of those things that you just keep experimenting, trying stuff around. Justin Stone saying, hey, Matt, let's be honest, your legs are insane. Thank you very much. Actually, it's the body part that I'm most critical of, but I do appreciate that. What do you think gave you the best gains in function and growth? Thanks for everything you do. Very good. Well, first and foremost, it starts off with the fact that I've usually had fairly good neuromuscular proficiency with using my lower body. And I credit that with the fact that I grew up skiing and I grew up biking and cycling. Even before I was a bike racer, particularly in college, there was only one way I knew how to ride my bike, even as a child, which was as fast as humanly possible. Like, I just didn't know, or I was like, well, why would I want to go slower? I've always been a speed freak in life. So anytime I was on a bike, people are like, you should pace yourself. You should take it easy. You should just kind of meander. Like, why? That means I'm going slower. I've always been like, I'm on the bike. I need to go fast. Boom. So I grew up literally as a child going, I ski fast and I ride fast. And that beats the hell out of my legs. And that makes them work really hard. So then when I got much more serious about conditioning my legs, that neuromuscular proficiency just took off like crazy. And you'll find that as a common denominator for a lot of people who have any serious muscular development in their body, is that they've got some sort of a history where they just used their body well or used it with some degree of skill. And then when they decided to turn the lens of their training towards hypertrophy, their muscles responded relatively well. I mean, we're still talking, it took them 5 years to build the physique they've got. But, it's like, oh, I grew up tumbling and doing gymnastics as a kid. So then when I got into, sport calisthenics and stuff, my muscles just got really big. It's like, yeah, because your ability to use those muscles was set in a very good foundation. So that's what I credit with my legs. I've always been able to use my legs very well, and to a large degree with better stability and mobility than most other people, because that holds a lot of folks back in the lower body as well. Is they've got strength, but the stability and mobility is holding them back. But again, I credit my experience of over 35 years in Taekwondo for that as well. Let's see, what else can I address for you folks? Let's see, now check my notes here on the board behind the camera. When it comes to complexes, circuits, I know I've been kind of vague this whole time, folks. I know you may be like, I want specifics. What exactly should I do? Well, check out the micro workouts playlist on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel. I've got tons of workouts there, tons of ways to hit just one area or just your full body or your abs and stuff. I've got lots of workouts that you can, they're written out in the description, so you can just copy, paste it into like a notepad or something, and then you've got basically your workouts written out for you, and you can mix and match and change and modify them around. And remember that a lot of times when it comes to micro workouts too, what we're talking about are micro workouts that just kind of focus on one little area of the body, not a little area, but a push, pull, or squat chain. So if you want a longer workout and you want to address more, you just put them together. It's like, well, I did this micro workout and that micro workout and that micro workout. Ended up being 45 minutes, so it's a full, like, normal workout. But you just put them together, or you can break them apart. Because remember, at the end of the day, the only thing that we really must have in order to get what we want out of our workouts is just getting the work in somehow, any way that you can. It doesn't matter if you break it up throughout the day. It doesn't matter what kind of splits you do. It doesn't really matter if you do a full body or push, pull, squat, or pushing and then pulling and then upper or lower. Do it however you want. As long as you're getting in your push-ups and you're making those muscles really work to the edge of their capacity, you're going to get the same result, because fundamentally you're getting it done. The bulk of what makes a workout style or approach work better for you is just what can you stick with? What works with your circumstances? What helps you achieve, as I talk about in my next book, personal alignment. So you're working with your preferences, with your equipment, with your schedule, with your time, with your energy. You want to work with your personal circumstances because that's going to allow you to stick to your workouts, to stay consistent with your workouts on a more regular basis of what you're doing. And it's going to allow you to put a lot more work and effort into the actual exercises themselves. And if that's not a recipe for success, I don't know what is. All right, let's get one more here from Woodrock before taking off, saying, I hope your Grind Aligned shirts will be available sometime soon. Going to be pricey from us to Germany, but if you deserve that, man. Thank you very much. I need to really go through a lot of the shirts and stuff over on the merch page. There's a lot of them that just kind of, they're outdated. They need redesigns and stuff. So maybe that's something I'll do tonight that I can address and bring some new merch out for you guys. It's crazy, the stuff that's on the internet these days, like the merch stores and things that cater to creators like myself. It's so easy to make your own stuff. It's crazy. Ryan K saying, hi Ryan, it's good to see you. Ash Moore saying, hey Matt, started doing the GMB mobility program for 15 minutes before my workout. Never felt better. I tell you, those guys know their stuff. I did their Elements program a couple of years ago. Holy smokes, did that make a difference in how my body moved and felt. Wow. What are your thoughts on mobility and how does it differentiate from flexibility? Very good. Well, in many ways, I think they're just kind of one and the same. Again, it's putting a label and a differentiation where we humans conceptually think there's a difference, but fundamentally there really isn't. It's like borders between states. It's like there's a invisible line in the sand, and that's Colorado, and that's Utah. And I'm like, looks like a pile of rocks to me, but okay. A lot of times these divisions exist more in our imagination than actually in Mother Nature. So remember that fundamentally what we're talking about is being able to use a muscle in an elongated position, having tension particularly. Now, a lot of times flexibility will be referred to as, can you get the muscle elongated? So the stretch. And then mobility is often referred to as, can you have tension and control over that muscle in the elongated position? So I guess there's a little bit of a difference there. But for me, it's always just, can I use my body in a big range of motion? Can I get all the way down for a pull-up? Can I come all the way up chest to the bar? Can I come all the way down in a push-up with my shoulders back? Or am I hunching up? That sort of thing. Those are the mobility concerns that I often question. I usually don't think too much as far as, is a muscle getting stretched or anything like that. Most of the time, I'm just like, can I move my body through a big range of motion? And then whatever muscles need to be stretched or mobilized or whatever for that to happen, then that's what happens. That's usually the way I like to think about it, is putting the tension chains or the individual joints through a big range and then having the muscles just do what needs to be done for that sort of thing. All right, folks. Well, it is about high time that I take off. Thank you very much again for your patience with the audio issues and stuff like that. I will try to figure out what in the world that was all about. But again, I've got like 15 different pieces of equipment and software that I was using for this, and it was all supposed to work, but apparently not. But thank you again so much for bearing with me on that. Don't forget, check out the RDP Red Delta Project Instagram and YouTube channel for new things that I post all the time, including new updates for the books, for the merch store, for new programs. I got new workouts coming out on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel. I've just posted a couple new ones the past couple of days. I got a new one coming out this weekend for you to follow. Check out the micro workouts playlist. Check out my micro workouts book for more information on why micro workouts actually works for helping you to build more muscle and strength. And it's one of those things that can really be a life changer, because it sure as hell it was for me. So I will bid you adieu, my friends. Talk to you next week. Till then, be fit and live free.